Andy is back from NJ Advanced Media. Andy, it's been a while since you've been on the show, and I want to get into a lot with you, but let's start with the game last night. It feels like we've reached the point in the season where the Jets are kind of just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, to put it any better. First thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised that they were able to keep it a game into the fourth quarter. I think, like, if you want to find something to give them credit for, in this less than 2 weeks since the trade deadline, where they kind of, wave the white flag on the season, no matter what they're saying. That's what it is when you're trading away.
Yeah.
Two of the best players. If you're looking for a positive, I think that's impressive in a way. But I mean, the offense and just the absolute ineffectiveness of Justin Fields after that first drive, and them not being able to kind of maintain what they were doing on that first drive, using him as a weapon running. It's hard to watch. And, in the post-game show last night, listening to Fitzpatrick and Tony Gonzalez and Richard Sherman all being like, if I was in that locker room, it's hurting the development of these young players. It's hurting the offensive coordinator to have Fields in the game. I don't know if the Jets will make a change because Aaron Glenn is defiant, and the more he gets criticized, the more he seems to stick to his guns. But I really do agree with that at this point. Like, you're hurting the offense. You're hurting the development of some of these guys for the future that you're going to want contributing. So, yeah, that's kind of my big takeaway from last night is I don't know, how much longer you can go with Justin Fields, unless, as Tony Gonzalez says, you're trying to lose.
The situation with him just seems untenable at this point. Willie Colon said it in the SNY postgame. He's like, he's not an NFL quarterback. And that first drive, they completed one pass to Adonai Mitchell. We had an incomplete pass, I think, to Mason Taylor. He dropped back a few other times, but ended up having to run. So, that's not that hard to stop if you're just going to run it all game. It just seems like, from a defensive perspective, it is very easy to stop the Jets offense. You hired Tanner Engstrand, a former passing game coordinator, and then handed him Justin Fields. So, Tanner's got to have the hardest job in sports. No?
Yeah. Herb Street said it best last night in the broadcast, which is like, him dropping back to pass, there being nothing there, is their best offensive play. And
right.
It's not even inaccurate. It's a clever thing to say, but it's true. And yeah, first of all, with the spotlight that's on this offense, the frustration when you're going back, they had Aaron Rodgers the last 2 years, and there were games for Aaron Rodgers which just don't fit into his career, and you're seeing it with this offense. And now, so Tanner Engstrand has all that to deal with. I do think if you look at some of the things he's doing schematically, it's there. And I don't want to, put it all on him. Maybe he hasn't adjusted well enough to being able to figure out what Justin Fields is, but also, like, Fields has been so wildly inconsistent to where, there's games where it seems like he has more confidence. He's, done a bad job against some bad defenses, but against like a Cincinnati defense where he knows they're not very good, he seems to play better, which is a big part of the problem as well. And it's getting to the point now where he's under contract for next year. And, I've been fine up to this point being like, this guy could be the backup, and you live like that. But now it's like, what if whoever they bring in as their quarterback, or they bring in a rookie, like, are you going to really start Justin Fields with what we're seeing? Like, and you're going back to the whole Zach Wilson thing with the scar tissue with the offense, and, just bringing him back is a hard thing to do. So it's getting to that point, and that's tough. It's a tough way to operate as a franchise, especially when you're looking across the division and you're seeing New England figure this out. Like, they had a little bit of a misfire with Mac Jones, but they had 2 cracks at this. And now they got Drake May, and the Jets have been taking cracks at this for like 50 years and haven't been able to figure it out. And it's not a cheap shot. It's just the reality of the situation. It's like, how is this possible? So, yeah, I don't know what to make of it.
And even in the moments where he had a chance to make a play throwing the ball, you had Adonai Mitchell going down the left side of the field, beating Christian Gonzalez. If he just leads them a little bit, like that's a touchdown. Instead, it's still an okay ball. Mitchell should have came down with it. It hit him in his hands. But it's little things like that. And then you had another one to Adonai Mitchell where he throws it behind him on a wheel route. Where
rough.
again, if he just leads him, it's probably another touchdown. I just looked at the all 22. With his speed, he's gone. I you would like to think that maybe like the play call was supposed to be a back shoulder. At best case scenario, I mean, you're trying to find things to make you feel better about the play, but it, Aaron Glenn, there is no football justification for keeping Fields in. And I think Connor Hughes tweeted it like halfway through the third quarter. He said Fields was on the bench with his helmet off, and Tyrod got up, put his helmet on, and started warming up. And then when the offense came back out, Tyrod just sat back down, Fields got up and went back in.
Yeah. I don't know.
I hate to use the T word, for a head coach, but like there's no football justification for leaving Justin Fields in at this point. Like you said before, it's detrimental to the rookies on the team. I don't understand it, and I don't think we will.
I agree with you, especially on that wheel route. What, like, oh my god, like that throw.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what else to say. Like it was,
or the intentional grounding call. It's the most blatant intentional grounding.
Like the jump throw in Cincinnati, it's just like, yeah, you can't. There's nothing there. I'll put the deep ball down the left side on Mitchell. It was a good enough throw, but then
it was a good enough throw. Yes,
as a receiver, if you're kind of you got to be a little jumpy at that point when you've seen some balls come out of his hand. So again, Justin Fields seems like a great guy, but it doesn't matter if you're a great guy and you can't make these simple throws. And that's always the problem. Like this dude has the arm talent to make every throw. And it's just not coming off. It's just not happening. And it doesn't matter. Like Zach Wilson had the arm talent to make every throw. It does not matter at all. If you have the talent, if you cannot mesh,
you win more games this season if Zach Wilson is still on the team.
Yeah. I mean,
I've said it, like you beat the Panthers, you probably beat the Broncos. Like,
yeah, I mean,
at least you have 2 more wins, minimum.
I mean, Zach Wilson's bad days. I mean, he did have a really bad day in New England where he had negative passing yards in the second half, but like Fields has done that in multiple halves now. And I mean, which is crazy. And to be talking about a guy who has 4 games, like we're talking about, he hasn't had over 120 yards in a game. The only game in the last 5 is Cincinnati. And you're talking about 120 yards being one of your better games in the last 5 or 6. Yeah. 4 games under 100 yards passing. It's just not. It's no way to play football.
I mean, we barely won. In my opinion, we barely won the last 2 games. I mean, it took a Herculean effort from Breece Hall, including him throwing a touchdown pass to beat the Bengals. And then if you don't return 2 of those kicks against the Browns, you're down 17-3 at half.
Yeah. And not coming back.
I mean, I don't know. I got nothing at this point. It's just, and I think they've punted on the season at the trade deadline. I mean, I love the return for Sauce, and I love the return especially for Quinton. I think they got a little more from the Cowboys than expected, especially since it's the higher of the first rounders in 2027.
Absolutely.
That's huge. So props to Muji. But when Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji, and who knows, maybe Woody Johnson, are sitting down in an office by themselves with no one else there, no media, no other coaches, no players. And Muji turns, I'm telling you, this conversation has happened. Muji must have said, look, I want to win games. But this kid out of Indiana or this kid out of Alabama could change everything. It's that simple. I mean, you can't go anywhere in this league without a quarterback, in my opinion. And the Jets did a great job at the trade deadline to put themselves in a position like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think If the return hadn't been what they were on those trades, it would be a much different vibe in terms of frustration from the fans right now.
Hmm.
There's still a lot of frustration, but like you can be the biggest critic of the Jets and you cannot argue with what they got back. I mean, you're dealing with two players here, and both are great in Sauce and Quinnen, but we're talking about it's been 2 years since each were at their peak in terms of playing the best they've played. Not necessarily the peak of their primes. They're both kind of either in the middle or in Sauce's case, getting into that. But the return they got was from basically what these guys showed during their all pro seasons, and we're a couple years removed from that. So I think
Yeah,
that's what's really impressive. And that's like in hindsight, I've never thought you would be trading Sauce or that there would be an offer that you'd really consider. But this is an offer where it's like, yeah, that does make sense. And, it also kind of hits the reset and kind of shocks the locker room and allows them to turn the page into something new where they're not this team that has been disappointing and fallen well short of expectations, but they're like kind of an underdog team where nobody expects them to do anything. And that's why I thought, winning for them now can provide value. So I do think they have to find a way to win some games here. Like not too many games, obviously, because you don't want
not
to,
too many. No.
yeah, you don't want to screw it up. But I do think there's value to where like they can put some of this stuff behind them if they're playing well. So it's an interesting place to be. But yeah, those two quarterbacks to me, Simpson and Mendoza, stand out as the guys right now. The guys who really, in terms of dealing with either rising into a new situation with more spotlight and more pressure and absolutely making the most out of it, or having a really bad start at Alabama for Simpson, and then just responding by winning every big game that he's been in. Um, that those are both things that can apply to the next level, and both those guys have NFL arm talent,
Yep.
NFL size, and you'd have to like what you see. And both of them are obviously Mendoza has a lot more experience in games, but both of them, have been around college a lot, and that's what you want out of a quarterback coming to the NFL. So they've both faced the best competition and had ups and downs, but ultimately been better than their downs consistently. And that's I think definitely you would feel good about either of those guys if you could get one of them in this upcoming draft. And the Jets will obviously, even if they win some games, they'll have the ammo to trade up and get one of them.
What did you think about Breece? Did you think they should have traded him or not? My opinion, and I'll give it quick, is I think they had a third round grade on him. I think is what came out. The Chiefs only offered a fourth rounder. In my opinion, if they can extend him, if they can keep him, he's worth more to the team and a rookie quarterback coming in like Mendoza or Simpson than any sort of third or fourth round pick that you're going to get in the draft. Because I think a rookie's best friend is a solid running game and a good offensive line. Offensive line that played very well last night, in my opinion. So, what were your thoughts on Breece? Are you happy? Do you think it's a good idea that they kept him?
Yeah. The more this has gone on, like basically he's been in the rumors since March when Glenn said it's not going to be just his job, and everybody thought that meant they might be trading him. But like, if you're going to shop a guy, why would you devalue him by telling the world that you're not sure he's a number one back? So I always thought
Hmm.
they probably are not shopping him. And now, as we got closer to trade deadline and Glenn wasn't changing his tune, it makes sense. Like, I don't know if they're going to extend him, but they have control, and they
Yeah.
don't seem to be a team that minds to the awkwardness that might come with asserting that control. So I think one way or another, he's going to be here next year, and I think it would be smarter for the Jets to extend him because I don't think it's going to be at the top of the market of the running
Hmm.
back value, but it'll still be a lot of money for a running back. But they'll have the cap space, and that'll be a good value for them. So yeah, I think you know the likelihood has gone up exponentially in the last few weeks that Breece Hall is here, not just next year but beyond. And I actually agree with that. I think it's all setting up for them to focus on offense this offseason. And we've seen this team over the last few years be a defense first team, and it hasn't worked. They need to figure out how to score and score consistently. So I like that part of the plan that seems to be in place, that they're going to focus on offense. And obviously the key is going to be getting it right. And I don't know if they are the guys to get it right. There've been some questionable additions. It's the jury is still out on the guys they've drafted, but I do think like it's a clear shift in strategy for them to clearly be focusing more on the offense, and I like that.
Yeah, I mean, Muji, everybody forgets Muji's a former quarterback. I mean, didn't practice squad player, but he was a former quarterback. And I'm just so sick of the last decade, it seems like, where we've had a good defense and the offense just can't put it together. That's been the story of the Jets for a very long time now. So I like the emphasis on offense. I do. I mean, half of these games you're winning if you have just a competent offense, or even not even just a full offense, just a competent quarterback. I think the arrow is pointing up for Muji. I think the draft class is kind of coming along. It's, I think a decent draft class right now that they brought in. We'll see what he does this draft with his own evaluations. Because, when he comes in and a new GM comes in, you're kind of working off the scouts and evaluations of Joe Douglas still there. You're not just firing everybody when you get in. You just can't do that. So we'll see what happens in the future. I like bringing in Adonai Mitchell. I like bringing in Menchie. I mean, we don't know what he's going to be. If he can go back to the player he was in Alabama, I know the leukemia diagnosis probably took a lot out of him. The Briggs signing was a good. The Briggs trade was a good one. The Phillips trade was a good one. Brandon Stevens has played much better since his first 3 or 4 weeks, whatever it is. Muji's done a pretty good job so far, and I don't know. I just see the vision. I see the future, and I like the direction that the team is going in right now. Aaron Glenn at the podium is a little interesting, a little hostile. I made a video the other day about the whole him and Samini thing. And my take was it's not Samini's fault for doing his job. Like, he gets a source, he's going to report on it. If Glenn is angry at something, he's got to be angry at whoever leaked or got that information to him, not at the reporter. He stepped in poop in that press conference, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's strange. I think there's probably some sort of intent or bigger reason he's doing this, maybe to keep the heat on himself. I mean, that's what, if you're trying to look at it in a way that's positive, from a media standpoint, I don't really care if he's upset or
Mm-hmm.
or he's going to be openly hostile to me if I ask a question, or any of us. I'm not going to speak for the other guys, but I think it's kind of funny and interesting that, like, here we are, these people who have these opinions, which are what they are, and here's a guy who's a football expert who's getting paid whatever it is, somewhere between $10 and $15 million a year to run an operation, and if we're in his head, I don't think that speaks very well to him and his focus on doing the job, and I don't think it makes him look good, and I don't think it really matters. I mean, fans I don't think spend a lot of time thinking about us, so
Mm-hmm.
it's just more for us to write about when he's like that. So I'm all for it, but yeah, I don't understand it. I think sometimes he views his interactions with us as, he's a very competitive guy. He was a very competitive player, and I think he doesn't like, letting us have one, or getting in a question that doesn't make him look good, or something like that. And so maybe he treats it like a competition. But I think the week before he also said something that wasn't great when, asked to send a message to the fans after season ticket prices go up. You're, 1-7 at that point, and you just traded your two best players. And his message was, I never said we'd be a team you could be proud of right now. I mean, like, what does that say to the locker room? What does that say to the fan base? I was like, what?
But
Who?
we're a win now team. Remember that?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Like,
mixed signals.
going back and rewriting history of what he said, I thought that was weak, but I also didn't think, like, he was saying it in a very defensive way, because he felt like he was being attacked in a press conference. So I find that to be a very strange dynamic, and I do think, like you said, that he stepped in it. Um, I agree to a certain extent, but I think it's still like there's going to be fans, especially after you win two in a row, that like to see that. But the more he's on edge and operating in just these normal press conference situations, like where he doesn't even want to give the quarterback, when we all know who the quarterback is going to be, and now it's going to be a whole nother round of it this week because we're going to be asking, as we should be, because we all saw what happened on Thursday night.
Mhm.
And he's going to be all intense and not wanting to give that information. And you're going to have some reporters who have been around for a while who are sick of that and are going to push back in ways that, kind of push him to the edge. He might step in it in a way that makes him look, really bad, and it becomes a story and a storyline that he has to overcome. So I just don't see the point of it, but it is interesting to me, and keep it up because, like I said, it's more for me to write about. But at this stage, yeah, I don't know what else to make of it. I have no problem with the guy pushing back personally on my questions because we are asking them questions in front of a live mic, and if they don't like the narrative they think we're setting, then fine, push back by all means. But yeah, his default position seems to be push back on everything, and when you have no history as a head coach and your record is 2-8, it's a little bit of a dangerous game.
Everything changes though if they start winning games, and if they
Oh yeah,
can
you can
look. I mean,
whatever you
it's the
want.
best antiseptic to all of this, you
Yep.
know. And I want him selfishly. I've been called a tanker. I've been called a loser. Whatever you want. I want him to play Justin Fields the rest of the season. Let him play because the future could be brighter with one of these kids. They have done, from what I've heard through various people, they have done a ton of work on Mendoza, and they are absolutely in love with Mendoza. The college football playoffs is going to show us a lot because they'll start playing. Everybody will start playing each other. Um, they were, from what I know, they were at the Penn State game and they watched him play kind of bad throughout the whole game. And then when it mattered, the kid had ice in his veins, took him right down the field and won. That's that's winning football in the NFL. And I don't want a guy. I hate hearing like, oh, this guy has a great upside, but he needs to develop. I'm done with that. I want a kid that produces, and Mendoza and Simpson produce. Just pick one of them. That's it. Just pick one of them. And they may not be Manning. They may not be Tom Brady. But are they Matt Ryan? Are they Kirk Cousins? Like, I'll take it all day because he'll instantly be the second best quarterback we've ever had in the franchise. Instantly. That's my thought.
I agree completely. You don't need, like, look at last night. Even with the Jets having a defense that is now not what it used to be,
Mhm.
kind of a shadow of what it was, and you're going up against the top offense in this league. And if they get mediocre to average quarterback play last night, they might have won that game.
Yeah.
And you need a top 15 quarterback. I mean, ideally, top 5 to 10 would be great. But if you get a top 15 quarterback, who can maybe develop into something better than that, you're going to be in a lot of these games that they haven't been in. And, just a guy who's better than average is what you need. And like you said, that would basically become the second best quarterback in franchise history. Um, and it shouldn't be this hard of a bar to reach. It's
No.
been way too hard. It's almost remarkable that it hasn't happened by accident at some point in the last, these guys. And I'm not going to go back and rewrite history. I obviously thought I wasn't big on Zach Wilson. I wasn't high on Zach Wilson when they drafted him. I think, you can make the argument. I think there's teams who have done a worse job letting go of Sam Darnold after he left than the Jets. Like when the
Mhm.
Jets got rid of him, it was probably time because of everything that he was going to have to carry in terms of baggage. But, like that, the fact that it just hasn't worked where they could get that out of a quarterback when he's in the building is remarkable. And at some point it is going to happen by accident, but like here's an opportunity right here for it to be not by accident. Like both of these guys, I'm with you. Those two are the guys that I'm looking at in this draft. They stand above the rest by far. There's not those questions about how they match up against good competitions and tough situations, how they bounce back from playing poorly. We've seen it from both these guys. Um, and I do think like you can feel good about either of these guys without those question marks of like, oh, who is Zach Wilson really playing? And so what if he can make these throws?
Right. You're not
And
arguing. You're not breaking down tape of him playing Coastal Carolina.
yeah, or
Okay.
UCF with no defense in a bowl game.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I
Not
mean, the SEC taking quarterback out of the SEC is way better than any of the Big Ten is so much better than any of these other conferences.
when a guy like Simpson, especially who I can't remember exactly, but I think it was two of these games against top 15 to 20 opponents. Alabama won by a field goal, and in both of those games, he doesn't have a single turnover. Like that is
Yeah.
what you need out of your quarterback in those games. Like maybe they weren't his best games, but I mean, the guy has been averaging close to 300 yards since that first game of the season and has made very few mistakes. And for him not to make those mistakes when he can't make them, like that is big. And then seeing Mendoza in a situation where, you know, he's had some ups and downs against good defenses, and now it's all on the line against a Penn State team they should beat, and he's not playing well. And then he does when it matters. Those are like the tests that we didn't see Zach Wilson ever pass in college.
Right.
So yeah,
Like you said, mediocre quarterback play wins a bunch of these games, including last night. I think the defense played well enough to win the game, and the score is. I feel like the score is not indicative of how the game really went, because if you had a functioning offense who's on the field longer, that turns into not only more points for you, but less points for the opponent. At
yeah.
least a closer game at that point. I mean, you had the defense make a really good stop when they were down 10, and the very first offensive play, Fields fumbles it right back to them, and they're on the 11-yard line.
Yeah, and they still didn't give up a touchdown there.
No, and they still didn't give up a touchdown. They still held them to a field goal.
Yeah, and the offense still had chances on that next drive, and then I think the first two plays, one of them was a sack when they got the ball back. So it just I mean, again,
this is all without Garrett Wilson playing.
Yeah, and the fact that they won both those games basically without Garrett Wilson contributing either is remarkable. But they're strange. This is a strange team, and I'm with you in terms of I think it's better for them, to make sure they have a high draft pick. But I do think it's also important for them to play games like last night, where at least they're in the game. And I know we're not doing moral victories, but like there's a big difference if they go there last night and they get humiliated. Like it feels different this morning, and they didn't get humiliated. And I think in a weird way, that's a win. And I hate to say that because it's pathetic, but
you don't get humiliated. But when your quarterback only has 25 passing yards with 8 minutes left to go in the third quarter, you're looking around and say, "What the hell are we doing, guys?" Like,
yeah. But you can actually like move forward from that game. It's not like, a few years ago in 21 when you go to New England and you're down by 40 at halftime. You know what I mean? Like that's hurting the culture going forward. I think you can get away with playing like this and losing without like damaging what you're trying to build in a weird way, if that makes sense. I do think there is concern about like, what are you doing with your offensive coordinator who's developing just like your young players when your quarterback can't function? And that's going to be a hard thing to balance for the rest of the season and not damaging what the potential can be for next year. But overall, I think if you see more like what you got last night, where there's at least one or two functional drives from the offense, then you can almost get away with it and be like, okay, this wasn't a total crap sandwich. And like, like you don't have to just feel like terrible going into a 10-day mini buy. But
right. I mean, the games where they're just non-competitive, it's just so hard to watch. It's not good for the locker room. It's not good for the young players there. I don't know. Like I said, rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic at this point.
Yeah, a lot of games left still, unfortunately. 7 games left.
Right. And luckily, I mean, if they start winning a few here, at least in the back of your head. You hate to see it, but they have the ammunition
Yeah.
to move up in the draft now, whether it's, another first round pick being given up or, a first round next year or whatever. I mean, they had, I think it was like only 5 picks before the trade of Sauce and Quinnen. And now, I mean, any new regime is going to want to load up on picks when they see something going one way. And yeah, people were upset they got rid of Sauce. People were upset they got rid of Quinnen, but they were 1-7 with those guys. They can be 1-7 without them. There was no difference. And honestly, the defense played okay without them
Yeah. I mean,
these last 2 games.
and that's kind of the point. Like it's not working. You need a shock to the locker room. They still like look. If we're looking at previous Jets rebuilds, and I've been around for 2, maybe 2.5, depending how you look at it, but like they are in a way better position right now than they've ever been headed into a rebuild. They have more space than they had, after Bowles left and they were trying to rebuild with the second year of Darnold. They have more cap space than they had going into 2022 when they kind of tried to redo it in the second year of Saleh. They have an offensive line that, like you said, I thought they played really well last night and is likely going to be even better next year with fewer question marks because these young guys are going to have more experience. And then you have talent still on both sides of the ball. You have a chance to have Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall with that offensive line and offense. I think Mason Taylor has shown enough to where you can see him being a real factor next year. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you still have, 2 edge rushers who are very capable and will, and McDonald and Jermaine Johnson. And I don't know what they're going to do with Quincy going forward, but a guy who has some talent there, defense is a bigger question mark, but you still have these pieces all over the roster where you can do something with this. And that has not been the case in the previous rebuilds. And I think that puts them in a much better position going forward.
Right. You have all these picks. You don't have to take an offensive tackle. You
Yeah.
don't have to take a wide receiver, even though you kind of want to take a wide receiver. You don't have to take a running back. You don't have to take a tight end. You have to take a quarterback.
Yeah.
You need a corner. You need a safety probably, but you don't need to fill every hole. You don't need to take an edge. So,
you can be
you're right.
selective in free agency too, not having to get something in free agency because you're going to have the firepower.
And they're going to have money too to do something. They would have more money if they just ate all of Rodgers' contract, but that's a conversation for another video. But anyway, all right. Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate it. I'll get you back on maybe after the season. You know what? Let's talk after the Saints game, maybe, because I feel like the Saints is going to be our Super Bowl. Whoever loses that is going to get one hell of a prize out of the draft, in my opinion. So let's try to do something then.
Yeah, I'm down, and that is going to be an interesting juncture in the season. We'll know a lot more about, how Glenn has handled everything up in between now and then is going to be fascinating. How these young guys look, what happens at quarterback. A lot of interesting things are going to happen for a team that is out of it. There's always something going on with the Jets, and who knows, Woody might even say something between now and then. So
say something, or he'll end up in some more emails. Who knows? Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate it. Andy, I'll have your X page in the description. If you guys like this type of content, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.